Off day. What off day? We've got prospect promotions to talk about, grades to give out, and trades to discuss. Hop on board. It's time for a Friday edition of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. Before we get to the intro, I want to thank all of our everydayers and thank you for making this your first podcast today and every day. Mutagen Man Goman or Goman maybe, and then I'm going to see. I have students claiming they watch the show, so I'm going to find out if this is true. So shout out to Joey, Jeffrey, and Ben. If they are watching, they'll say something tomorrow at school, so we'll see. I am Jeff Ellis, one of your hosts. Been here since the inception of the show. Former national writer for prospects and the MLB draft at Scouting 24/7, and your fifth favorite blogger at pretty much every Cleveland sports blog. You went to Cleveland Fan, IBI, whatever it was. I was there for a time, as well as currently a contributing writer to Prospects Live.
You're number one in my heart, Jeff.
Oh, thank you.
in my podcast heart. I'm Justin Latta, one of your co-hosts of Locked On Guardians, and we are your daily Cleveland Guardians podcast. We dive into all the goings-on of your Cleveland Guardians every day, from the majors, the minors, and even the draft. Happy Friday. Get your Friday fix, whatever day you're listening to Cleveland Guardians discussion. You have come to the right place, and we are absolutely glad to have you here, whether it's your first time or you're an everydayer. I've been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007, the former editor of Guardians Baseball Insider, and currently a freelancer at the News Herald and the Morning Journal in Cleveland suburbs, and also contribute to Prospects Live, covering other prospects. So yeah, shout out to everydayers. Make sure become an everydayer, leave some comments, subscribe, hit the bell. Make sure you're getting notifications when our next podcast drops. It'll be Monday. No off days next week for us.
Nope. Just to interrupt, as you can see, today's show is laid out, so you know what's coming. We're going to do who we'd like to see promoted, evaluating some trade thoughts, beginning of summer grades. If we have time, we're going to talk about 1-1. There was some really interesting data that says that the industry consensus differs from the league consensus on the draft. And then talking about maybe the national series, which leads me to this. Before the show began, Justin was talking about Patrick Corbin, and I made a Michael Corbin joke, and he had no idea what I was talking about. Who gets that? Put in the comments below. The great Fred Decker was involved in a movie, not Monster Squad. It's also a fantastic movie, and I don't know if I can quote the most famous line on here. But what's the other one I'm referencing? But thank you all again. And without further ado, who do you want to see getting pushed up? Yes, let's do the news, and then we'll talk about promotions.
Yeah, let's get to the news of the day. So Gavin Williams made his first start rehab in Columbus. It was pretty mixed. Mostly not good, actually. He was very spotty with control in the first inning, which is to be expected because he has not faced live batters in an actual game setting since like early March. So not really surprised. In the first inning, he was like 94, 97. There were a couple of 92s mixed in there, which was a little concerning. He's had a wider velocity band in the past. Sometimes he'll be a little bit lower, a little bit higher, but again, he's trying to ramp back up. Control was not good, if anything, for the most part. He did strike out Jordan Luplow on 3 straight fastballs. So, yay for facing, guys who used to be in the majors with Cleveland and blowing them away. And then he didn't finish the second inning. He walked the first batter, and he was more 92, 94 in that inning. So velocity dropped off. So hopefully Friday or Saturday, when they're talking about his rehab start in Cleveland, that he feels okay and he could do one next week. That's the only thing you have to really worry about. Like, he was going to be rusty no matter what. And hopefully next time out, there'll be a next time out. He's fine. Stephen Kwan played a full 7 innings. It was a doubleheader. I think he got a walk. He made a couple catches in left field. He didn't play game 2, but he seemed fine. I still think he'll probably join the team on this upcoming homestand. Maybe he needs one more game in Columbus, so maybe Saturday for his jersey night. Hopefully that'd be cool. Joey Cantillo rehabbed in Arizona. The results weren't good, but again, you're hoping for the guy to be healthy and just kind of get his feet back under him because he's been out for a while, but that's good news. And then Andrew Walters made his debut in Columbus, and it was bad. He gave up 2 home runs. He had only given up 1 home run all year in Akron. He was, averaging 97 with the fastball. and
it's a bad part.
It was pretty.
It's everyone debuts poorly there.
Those home runs he gave up are going out anywhere. Doesn't matter. They were crushed.
I know.
So safely, let me tell you this: if you ever come across anybody talking about prospects, like let's go back to the spring training chatter on Chase DeLauder and people who are like, "Oh, just put him in Cleveland. He's having a great spring training." If anybody ever says that to you and says, "Ah, this guy just skip AAA," or "Let's rush this guy to the majors. He's ready," just ignore him. You know you can ignore them because there is always an adjustment period at AAA. It is the hardest level of the minors right now. There's a huge gap between AAA and the majors, and it's absolutely a level guys have to complete at this point because it's the only level offering you any chance to face guys who, like, Jordan Luplow's there. So you're facing guys who's had major league success for some part. Who else was there for Philadelphia? It was Scott Kingery was on this team. So that's a guy who was
they're Miles Straw.
Yeah, so this is a stop everyone's got to go to because the ball is different and the competition's different, and it's just a different level of competition. So skipping that level anymore is just very, very rare. And anybody who says, just rush this guy to the majors without 150 at bats, you can.
Juan Soto is the only guy who skipped the upper minors. That's it. That's
if it's a Juan Soto. That's Chase DeLauder, who's been out for 2 days again with a bruised toe on his other foot, is not Juan Soto. So there you go. Guys who we think should be promoted. So we know, Matt talking about Wilkinson got promoted earlier this week. He made his first start last week in Lake County. Andrew Walters is in AAA now. Alaska Abney took his spot in AA. Who else do we think should go up? We've picked out a couple guys to talk about. Jeff, I'm just going to say, number one, I think my guy Doug Nikhazy needs to go to AAA because in AAA, your pitching rotation is Connor Gillespie, Tyler Beatty, who got destroyed again on Thursday, Wes Parsons and Will Dion, and Darren McKagan. These are all just 40-man filler guys. Doug Nikhazy, I think, needs to go up because Austin Peterson needs his spot in Akron. Parker Messick needs a spot in Akron as well.
Trenton Denholm needs a spot in Akron.
Three
guys in
spots, need to go up. I'm going to say Austin Peterson is my guy right now. I know you've been big on him too, but I watched his start on Wednesday. He struck out 13, and that sounds great. I'm going to give you the glass half full on that. I know people love that on the show. Adam Plutko was the last guy to strike out 13 at high A or at Lake County. And that was when it was low A actually. But 13 strikeout game is great. It's not indicative of a guy who is going to go out and dominate. But what I like about Peterson is he throws 91 to 93. He can hit 94 and he's got a ton of extension because he's 6'6" and he uses it well. So his 93 looks like 95, which is going to play, and he commands it no matter where he wants to throw it. He's got a good, decent slider. I think he's probably a 2-pitch guy, but we'll see where that goes. But I think he's ready to face the next challenge because
he's got Ben Lively arm, right? Like, he's got that extension and that pronation.
He throws a little harder than Lively. Yeah,
I know, but it comes. Yeah. So it's like, like you said, it looks a lot harder than it is.
Yeah, I think he's got a chance to be a 5th or 6th starter. And I think, they've been collecting this type for quite a while because Denholm is in that same thing. I think, Mace might be there. But I think Nikhazy is ready for the next bump to jump to AAA. You can argue Mace too, although I have less upside for Mace than Nikhazy at this point. So those are just a couple pitchers on my list. Who's a pitcher on your list you want to see promoted soon?
Before I dive in, I got to point one more fact. Austin Peterson, UConn, where Charles Nagy pitched. That's where they got Nagy out of. And but the other funny thing is he's another guy who Purdue didn't have any time for as a pitcher, so he had to transfer out and then went on to become fantastic. We talked about that last year with I'm blanking on the Kent State pitcher who we wanted to take in the second round. But there's something about Purdue giving up on you is a good sign for your future. But Messick is, we touched on Messick and Denholm. Denholm has been a really solid pitcher. He just hasn't been able to quite get over the hump. But he's probably third in line. Messick was the pitcher of the week last week, and it's like the second or third time he's won that. And here's a guy who was a high second round pick. We mentioned before, dominated Chase DeLauder in school. He was one of the viewed as faster moving college pitchers in the class. And he's getting lapped by high school guys. Noah Schultz is already in AA from that same class.
Not by his own fault. Yeah.
No, but it's just one of those things. Like it's those
It's
three arms in
bizarre.
particular, you can't let lesser guys block them. You know, they sold Jaime Barea and to Korea, which was a very weird tweet, but that's exactly how they phrased it. But yeah, no, with Wilkinson, the problem is like Wilkinson, so they moved him up, but that doesn't clear spots ahead, which is what they need. Walters, you know, Abney, those, it's fine, but I'm looking forward to more. And those three high A arms, yeah, move up Nikhazy because AAA is a cluster, but those three high A arms all need to be moving in the next 2 months.
Yeah, the hard part with the high A arms is you've got to replace them, and from what you're looking at in
Jaime
Lynchburg,
Arias. I understand like guys in the lower minors don't make as much, and you want to reward your organizational soldiers, but you can't let it
still
affect.
Pay him more. You could.
Yes,
You could have just said we'll pay you the same rate.
Yeah, so do that, but you can't affect your overall development because.
I will say though, like Yorman Gomez is now on his third, is on his second tour of duty in Lynchburg. He threw 100 innings. He's ready for high A. He's been decent. Alonzo Richardson, I don't see much for, but he's on his third tour of duty. He threw 100 innings last year in Lynchburg. He's ready to go up and give you innings at the next level. He may not be great, but he can do it. And the problem is replacing those guys. So if you bump up a Gomez or a Richardson, you know, you do have some guys in the minors who could, in that level, who you could stretch out. They've been doing that a little bit with h-vac and h-vac. The problem is you have nobody in the Arizona level to move up. Like there's nobody down there that's stretched out enough. This is where the issue of having Zibin and DeLucia hurt is really hurting you right now.
Yeah.
And
Campbell,
Jake Berry is also hurt.
All
Campbell,
the guys who have not moved up the line as expected.
Yeah, you've got a bunch of guys in high A who have not performed or they're hurt. So the backlog is just not good right now in terms of innings. So I don't know. Stretch out some guys down there. Again, Robert Wegelnick was a minor league signing. Kyle Scott's thrown a bunch of innings. h-vac and h-vac, say those names back to back, have also stretched some of those guys out. And same in Lake County. You've got Tolek and Jacobs and Miller and Zapata who have all made starts at different times. Keep one of them stretched out. It can work. It's just time for the pitchers to move on.
And if this is the reason why like your other pitchers are backed up and not moving up, then like sign some.
Hurting your development of the good
you're
guys.
Hurting your development. So it's like sign some players after the draft, take some guys late, you know, or sign, you know, undrafted free agents who can provide depth.
Or you know what, trade some roster fodder. Maybe not in your 40 man, but trade someone from AAA who's not going to be a help for you here. Like, you know, trade if Lorenzo Cedrola is not going to play much for you in the future, trade him and get a low A arm. Just kind of kick the can down the road. Like just swap.
I mean, that's like what the Rays do. It's like they'll take, you know, they're like, okay, so here's a borderline major league talent, and we'll just take a lotto ticket instead. And like, I think that is the
kick the
right
can
play.
down the road. Yeah. We'll talk about a couple of hitters when we come back. There's a couple obvious ones that need to move up as well. And then we're going to give out some quick grades from the first, a little more than a quarter of a season, but summer's here. So school's out. Jeff's a teacher. So we're going to lean into that and give out some grades here. And then we're going to talk about whether or not the Guardians need to know who to hold and who to trade. So stick around for that. Guardians and Nationals are playing over the weekend. It's a good time to jump into FanDuel because this is a team that crushes lefties. David Fry they're facing Patrick Corbin on Friday night. David Fry crushes lefties, so I would say go in there and place a bet on David Fry getting 2 total bases. The Guardians are favored by 1.5. I would definitely take the over on that. Or
Corbin.
I said take the over, and the over under on runs is 8. If the Guardians win this game 4-3, I have concerns. So I would say definitely take the over on runs. We'll see what happens. That's what I'm going to do. I think moving into Friday against the Nationals, and it is winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. If you're a new customer, you can go ahead and place $5 on the bets I just told you about that I'm going to do. And if you win and you're a new customer, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets. That's $150 to put on spreads, money lines, player props that we talked about, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockdown and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Of course, you can listen to all the action in your SiriusXM app when Tom Hamilton calls that David Fry home run off of Patrick Corbin on Friday night. Just search Guardians on the SiriusXM app. So I'm going to say the most obvious hitters to promote here are going to be, let's see, Angel Hanau at shortstop. This is his kind of his third tour of duty in Lynchburg. It's more like his second because he played very little that first year there. It's going to be hard to open up playing time for him in Lake County because you've got Devers, you've got Furman, you've got Alex Mooney.
So promote Furman.
Furman should get to Double-A. And I know at Double-A, everyone, you might say, okay, well, you got Cairo and Tolentino, and you got Frias and
no,
Aaron Bracho and Yordis Valdez. Aaron Bracho, it's time to move on from Aaron Bracho. Open up spots at second base for Nate Furman, and then get Hanau to shortstop, work him into the mix, and then PD Halpin hasn't played in like a week at this point, so if he's hurt, put on the injured list and move up. Guy Lipscomb to Double-A or something and get Jason Churio into the mix, or CJ Kafis, play him more in the outfield, play him at first base too with Joe Naranjo, make that transition and move up Churio. I think those are the most obvious ones. And then, we'll talk about a couple of these guys in a second, but there's the Brito, the Tana, the Schneemann conversation in Cleveland. And that makes room for, nobody at AAA actually, because there's nobody to promote from Double-A. That's going to be a problem, but you have any hitters?
A guy Lincecum is a guy we talked about. Kind of same problem with he's infield, outfield. What do they got him playing at now? Outfield, right?
He's an outfielder.
The CJ K-Fit. Like, it's the thing right now. So here's the list to promote, right? Like, let's look at who's performing well. Highest WRC plus in the minors, CJ Kafis, Janau 2, Lincecum 3, Furman 4, Daniel Schneemann 5, Ralphie 6, Mooney 7, Churio 8, Knapsick 9, Esteban Gonzalez 10. So most of that list, like, I don't think I have to spend too much time here.
No,
Ralphie, I kind of understand just because he is so young, but he's also utterly dominating that level. So it's like almost anyone on that list, I'm up for promotion. And I see a lot of people who want to trade for a shortstop, and people keep bringing up Bo Bichette because I think he's mentioned on other shows. Bo Bichette's been not good this year, and he's going to be costly to get. At this point, I'd rather give Schneemann a try at short with Gonzalez, Jimenez. If Rocchio doesn't work, it's Schneemann time. Let's go and give him what's out there is really terrible. And or really expensive. So it's like even he has earned that promotion. So most of those guys on that list, I think, now I will be the first to admit, Esteban Gonzalez, not the guy I'm the most familiar with. He's also 21 in A-ball, and I think that,
that says everything you need to
know. Though at the same time, Christian Knapsick is 22 in A-ball, but that's why he needs to move up after being a guy they gave some money to a year ago. But it's the infielder logjam. It is just jammed up good.
Yeah, they keep collecting infielders, and at some point
one of them has to work, I guess. I mean,
one has to work, or one has to be,
and that's the other thing too. Like Tolentino and Yordis Valdez, they aren't hitting their way out of a brown paper bag right now. And Valdez was always a guy who couldn't.
Those guys weren't drafted as hitters. Let's be honest.
But it's like the problem is now they're getting up to Double-A, and they're really struggling. It's like I understand they're never going to cut bait on a second round pick this early, but I think there's also a point where you have to be very realistic when they're in Double-A and they can't hit their weight. That this guy's a utility minor league player, and hey, maybe he'll break out. Some guys do. There are those guys who turn themselves around. Eric Haas is one that comes to mind where it looked like it was going to fall apart before he got it together. So maybe that can happen. But I hate this idea of prospects who still have a chance being blocked by guys who really look like that.
Yeah, the decision making is definitely really frustrating. I understand the need for depth, and I understand, you're trying to make sure you get enough looks at these guys,
and there's rewarding, and I get that. And it's not just playing OOTP and moving up and moving down, random names on a sheet. But at some point, you also have to. They are in the situation they're in right now because they did not properly get time to evaluate players, right? Like we sat there and watched again, I'm going to say like Cole Calhoun. Like, it was great he was on the team, but he didn't need to play every day. Like, that was a chance to evaluate. They need to evaluate these young players, and that whole backlog in the big leagues is pushing down all the way to A-ball.
Yeah, I think the Cole Calhoun thing probably was rewarding him for coming in here and not retiring and bringing in leadership. So that's probably why he got the playing time he did.
I mean, the reward was service time. Like, the reward was just being on a roster.
Yeah, I think for the leadership, though, they wanted to reward him with playing time, and that season was over anyway. But you're right. Evaluation was a period they needed to do. We're going to talk about evaluations here in a little bit because the Guardians are in an interesting spot now that they are in first place. They're playing well, and they still have a roster full of people to evaluate, to be honest. So we need to have the conversation about whether or not this team needs to stick to getting looks here or figuring out what to do if they want to upgrade this team. It is not an easy decision. So we're going to talk about that here on Locked On Guardians.
What is an easy decision is checking out our good friends and sponsor over at Stitch Fix. While I have not used Stitch Fix myself, my wife loves it. We get Stitch Fix boxes all the time. And I've mentioned it before on the show, and I'm just going to keep mentioning it. Like, I know here it says Stitch Fix men's. Like, our copy is about men's. Hey, man or woman, you're going to benefit from Stitch Fix. It's a product. When I told my wife that we had this deal with them, she got excited until she saw that you had to make a new account. She wouldn't give up her account. She likes all they've done for her. She likes that her account sends her really good clothing. We have 2 kids under the age of 6. It is perfect for helping you get a new wardrobe that makes you look professional, makes you look good quickly and easily. It's a cheat code, right? This is the cheat code to looking good. So head over to Stitch Fix for yourself for style that makes you feel as good as you look, and get started today at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $20 off your first fix. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $20 off. stitchfix.com/MLB. Must redeem within 7 days of sign up. My family fully approves.
Guardians back in action over the weekend. It's the Nationals coming to town. Whatever you're doing Friday.
2 out of 3 because it's a bad team.
Yeah, that's something we should mention. Yeah,
I'm kidding. Lost. Don't get mad at me about negativity. It's a joke. It's a joke.
But their last 3 series losses are Houston, Chicago, and the Rockies, and those are all bad teams. They're below 500. Last thing they lost to last series they lost to a team over 500 was the Braves. So yeah, you can check out all the action on your Sirius XM app. Just search Guardians on the app. Whatever you're doing, maybe you're grilling out on a Friday and you want to listen to the game. I enjoy that quite a bit because I'll be watching college baseball on Friday, so I will probably tune in to the radio broadcast while I watch college baseball. All right. The conversation we really wanted to have today, we talked about we wanted to do grades. I don't know if we're going to get to grades today. It might be a Monday thing. The real conversation we want to talk about today, though, was the decision between evaluations and upgrades. Because if we're being honest, coming into the year, there was not a lot of expectation to win the division, right? They were coming off a poor year. You had a young rotation that could have been good. You still had, Beaver, he got hurt, but you were talking about whether or not he was going to pitch his way into a good trade or a qualifying offer. You were hoping McKenzie was okay. And then you had, Rocchio at Arias at short. You wanted to see Manzardo at some point this year. You wanted to see if Will Brennan could be an everyday player. Tyler Freeman got moved to center field. You wanted to see that every day, right? We knew at some point this year they were hoping to get a look at Rodriguez or Valera. You took a chance on Estevan Florial. It hasn't worked out. You needed to get at bats for him. Just a lot of guys. Bo Naylor, first full year in the big leagues. You had a lot of guys you wanted to get at bats from, and you had a young bullpen. So with a new manager too, this was a year that seemed like it was going to be about evaluating the team, who's going to be part of the future. And then that's still happening, but you're also winning. But my take is this. When you're this good, when you're playing as well as the Guardians are, there's nothing guaranteed in the postseason. This team could play well all year, get in the playoffs and lay an egg and be out in the first round and lose 2 in a row. And that could be it. We don't know. Nobody knows because that's how the playoffs are. But I understand they need to get some time to evaluate more of these players. You need to see more Rocchio. I don't know about Arias at this point. I don't know about Brennan at this point, but there's still enough young guys in this roster. Even if you talk about like bringing up Tana or bringing up Schneemann or bringing up Brito, there's still guys, those Valera, there's still guys to get a look at here. But if you go into the trading, if you go into the month of July, you're out of the All-Star break and you are 3 games up on the Royals, you're 3 games back in the Royals, and you're still looking this good, you owe it to, I think the Guardians owe it to the team to go out and make some trades and add to this team, because you don't know when you're going to get this chance next. Like, you can sit here and say, we're trying to evaluate the roster for the future to build a core here, and they have a core, but you have Jose Ramirez still in his prime, and you've got Emmanuel Clase in this great bullpen, which bullpens are fickle year to year and they can burn out very fast. They owe it to this team, I think, if you're in serious contention of the trade deadline, to go out and make some sort of moves to shore up whatever positions you can. I'm not saying they have to. I mean, we have to talk about which holes they can plug and which ones they can't, but they have to seriously address some of the holes in the roster if they are in contention, because your window, your record tells you what your window is. You can't sit here and hope that, well, we'll wait a year from now because that's when we think the core will be established. Like, you have a chance right now. You don't know if it's going to happen next year. I'm not saying you have to sell the farm for the best piece on the market, right? Like Jesus Lazard. I'm not saying I would love that, but I'm not saying you have to make that big trade. But
I don't think they have
I think they owe it
him, unless you're trading Manzardo, unless you're giving up from your big league roster.
Right. But I think they owe it to the team. I think this team owes it to the roster to go out and make some moves to upgrade them if they continue to play this well.
And I get that, but the problem right now too is, like, for all the young guys making interesting moves, it's a real lack of blue chip. Like, and Ralphie's great, but right now he's a first baseman in A-ball. Like, that is not a sexy profile. Chase DeLauder gets hurt walking to the door in the morning. His trade value is down because teams were afraid of that injury history in college, and it's continued into the pros. He can't stay healthy. It's like Kyle Manzardo, to get a really good prospect. Like, we are enjoying Kyle Manzardo. It was 2.5 years of Aaron Civale, a pitcher who can't stay healthy and is a number 5. Like, he is Logan Allen-esque. And
controllable pitching is always the most expensive.
That's the thing. Yes. Like, it's going to be hard to find pitching and shortstops. It's not a good market for that. Like, you and I were talking, Brendan Donovan's a guy I really like. Abraham Toro, who's not consistent.
I don't know if we need to get into names today.
That, stuff like that. But it's more just to give guys an idea, though, guys and gals listening, like, it's hard to do, right? It's a real hard needle to thread properly. And the other side of it, honestly, is like, if I'm going to be devil's advocate and get myself in trouble, because people never want to hear this, they want to hear like, yeah, gun ho, go for it. There are a lot of teams who had great rebuilds in place who arrived a year too early, blew it up, and then the next year they went back and were in a worse situation. So you really have to evaluate, like, and we know they will, because a year ago they were 2 games out when they sold Civale, wasn't it? Or was it a game and a half? And
something
people imploded about how close they were, but they were just very realistic that they knew that team wasn't going to do it. And then, it was really ugly the rest of the way. And this isn't to be negative, because I think that this team can do it. I think they are there. I think the important thing is threading the needle well, finding useful rentals, because that's going to be
sick of that term over the last couple of years.
Rental or
no, threading the needle. We've just used that term so much.
Well,
this franchise the last several years.
Well, it's what happens when you have no payroll. Like, let's be honest. Like, you have to thread needles when you have no payroll. People are always like, this and that, this, that. It's like, money is why the Yankees can keep contending, because they can afford for guys to get hurt. They can afford to have a guy underperform. A Miles Straw they would maybe cut and not even bother with. Like, that gives you flexibility Cleveland doesn't have, and that's why they have to thread the needle. It's why I keep hoping that, like, minority ownership would change the payroll structure, but I feel like we're still in a holding until they figure out their village situation pattern. So I think, yes, you got to go out and add some pieces, but I think the smart move is rentals, because they're cheaper. And it's not going to be shooting the moon. It's going to be, smart pieces at decent. But at the same time, we just saw they added Riley Feltner to their their development side of things. I'm still all for trading for his brother Ryan. If you want to talk cost control, it's also being smart.
The team they just destroyed again.
I know, and they destroyed him.
I don't think you have enough time to fix him.
No, but no, maybe not. But it's a long-term fix. But it's also being smart about like what teams are not good at development and picking on those, like they have done through the years with San Diego.
But that doesn't help you this year. I'm talking about this year specifically. Like starting pitching is going to be expensive. Rental, maybe not. Like we talked about.
Cal Quantrill might be your cheap rental option on the market. Like that's the situation. And his fit was terrible. He's coming back to earth, but pitching is so expensive.
The question is, so you've got 2 months. You've got all of June, and you've got a good chunk of July. Really, you don't have to jump into it until later. And they're going to have conversations, starting in July. I'm sure they're having some back pocket conversations, but you've basically got the next 2 months now to figure out if Rocchio is the dude. Arias, it seems like it's not going to happen. It's hard to keep watching that. Brennan,
I would argue yesterday was one of his better performances in a while, which is sad.
Yeah, well, he has those days, and then he goes.
I know, but it's sad because of how ugly it is in general. Like that, we could say that. Yeah, that's a net.
So you've also got some time left to look at Will Brennan, and Florial's probably gone when Quan comes back. You've got Rodriguez in the meantime. Like you've got some time to look at those guys while you scour the market for who might be available. And if you get to that point and one of those guys, starts playing the way that you hoping, you can back off that trade and move on to something else. That's why you have a lot of conversations in the hopper and just wait and see what happens. And I would take this chance to evaluate a Juan Brito or a Daniel Schneemann and see if they are a piece of this roster that works, because Arias hasn't worked. It's not working. Rocchio, it's okay. He's walking defensively. He's been fine besides some weird decisions, but like Tena, any of those guys, like, use these next 2 months to get some looks at these guys while you can and have those conversations about who you want to upgrade and what positions you want to upgrade. Because if you're in the position, and again, if one of these guys does fit the bill, you can drop that conversation and continue to move on to other pieces. But I think that the way they're playing, if they get to this point in July and they are either in first place or they're a game or two out, bullpens are fickle year to year, like I said, and they burn out so fast with young players. You got a chance this year. You don't know what next year looks like. And again, I'm not saying blow it up and trade for, 3 long-term guys that don't fit or something, but they owe it to, I think, this roster, to Jose Ramirez, to this bullpen, to make some moves if they are in this spot. So you use these next 2 months to evaluate who you have to, but I think they need to be having these conversations because you owe it to this team to make upgrades if you can.
The other devil's advocate side, though, is like, you can't really get an evaluation in 2 months. Like trying to do 2 months evaluations is how they've ended up in.
Sorry, if you're winning takes priority. You are.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, you're not going to get.
You don't know when this chance is coming again.
No, I'm just doing the devil's advocate with it. But yeah, I just think
we got to go.
Yeah, we got to go. But it'll be interesting. Obviously, it's something we have to monitor as it gets closer. It is a fun debate, right? It is the.
Yeah, we'll get to grades next week. We'll get to some stuff about the draft, the 1-1 situation, and don't have a letdown against the Nats over the weekend. Win that series.
No, take care of business. You got Patrick Corbin. That's a gift. So thank you all for watching, rating and reviewing, downloading every single day. We appreciate all of you. Thank you again for the fantastic April and May, and go Guardians.